Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show in junction with the Ryan Show. This is episode number 39. Great show for you this week. Happy Feast Week, Happy Hate Week, Happy Thanksgiving, whatever you want to celebrate this week. It is my favorite week on the sports calendar. We have NFL football on Thursday on Thanksgiving. Then we have the NFL on Black Friday. We also have college football rivalry games on Friday and Saturday. Then you have your regular slate of Sunday NFL football. And then you have football on Monday as well. So you have, what is that, 5 straight days of football? I hope everybody enjoys that. We're going to get into the latest college football playoff rankings. We're going to break it down how this hate week could impact the college football playoff moving forward. And we're going to talk about the Lane Kiffin situation. Is he staying? Is he going? Which school do I think he's going to go to? And how his decision could impact Ole Miss and their future, not just now, but in the college football playoff. Is he going to stay? Is he going to leave immediately? Is he going to be kind of a lame duck where he just finishes out the season? I'll get into all of that. But first, we have to break down the trade that shook me to my core in Major League Baseball between the Mets and the Rangers, as the New York Mets have sent career Met Brandon Nimmo to the Texas Rangers in exchange for Marcus Semien. Now, there's a lot of emotions going around right now. There's a lot of people who are not happy with this trade in Mets land. Everyone I follow pretty much universally doesn't like this move, except for a couple of people, because at its face value, it does not make the Mets better immediately. Their defense is going to be a lot better because Marcus Semien literally just won a Gold Glove this year. And Brandon Nimmo has declined defensively, so they improve on the defensive end. But Brandon Nimmo, the last 2 years, has hit over 20 home runs and driven in over 90 runs. And he had a career high in both of those this past season, hitting 25 home runs and driving in 92 runs. So while Nimmo is no longer the on-base threat that he used to be, he is becoming more of a power hitter and more of an offensive, producer. So, and the Mets, while they get to move off of his contract, they also get a little bit older because Semien is 35 and Brandon Nimmo is going to be only 32. However, Semien's deal is for 3 years, as Brandon Nimmo's is for 5 years. So while Semien is older, they get better defensively and they cut 2 years off of that deal. Now, that's really not going to pay that much of an impact before the presumed lockout, because right now there's no salary cap. So it doesn't really matter if you're paying guys or not, or if you're paying them to play or not, because you can pay your players as much as you want. So it doesn't really have that much of an impact. But this does allow the Mets later on, if there's a salary cap, they no longer have to pay the Brandon Nimmo contract. And in 3 years, that Marcus Semien contract comes off the books. So, in the event that we have a lockout and they do implement a salary cap, which is the main reason for all of this, it would impact the Mets, positively, if they were able to move off that contract and not have to pay those extra remaining years off of Brandon Nimmo's contract. Now, this is potentially going to be a good move for the Mets, as long as it proves that the Mets are going to be making more moves, because you don't take away one of your best hitters as a defensive replacement and replace him with a guy who had a pretty bad offensive year last year if you're not going to plan on replacing that offensive production. So, yeah, it plugs the hole in second base, but now it creates a hole in the outfield. You don't really have a center fielder. You don't really have a left fielder. Carson Benj, the young prospect, is presumed to be up at some point in this next season. He might be the opening day center fielder. You don't know. They signed Tyrone Taylor to a 1-year, $3 million contract, which is fine, but I don't think any Mets fan wants him to be the everyday center fielder. And you create this scenario where there's a lot more trade options that the Mets can get from this, because now that they don't have they have second base pretty much locked down, because Marcus Semien plays pretty much every day, and he's not really injury prone, although he did have an injury this past season. He stays relatively healthy. He's great defensively. So that position's locked down, which means that Brett Beatty, who might have had time at second base, he's going to be fighting for third base, or he's going to be a trade option. Jeff McNeil, who would probably be the opening day second baseman, now it might be the backup second baseman, but he might be moved as well. And I think that he has some value because he can play second, he can play third, he can play all three outfield positions. So he is older, and his offensive production has diminished the last couple of seasons since winning the batting title. But I still think that he can be a productive offensive player, or at least, reasonably effective on defense. You also have Mark Vientos. Is he going to be the everyday third baseman? Is he going to be the guy that we saw in October of 2024, where he was lighting the world on fire and practically the right-handed version of Barry Bonds? Or is he going to be the guy who struggled like he did last season? That's kind of a wild card. And I think that the Mets are trying to go all in, especially with this looming lockout. They want to capitalize on the fact that they don't have a salary cap. So they're going to be signing and trading pretty much everyone under the sun. In my opinion, that's how I would go at it. I would go balls to the wall. I would think, for the short term, at least right now, try and get Alex Bregman at third. Try and get Cody Bellinger, because Cody Bellinger provides defensive versatility. He can play either left or center. If Carson Benj is really good and you think that he's going to be the everyday center fielder, put Cody Bellinger in left, or put Cody Bellinger in right and move Juan Soto to left if you don't believe in his defense that much. And this also means that Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz have to be re-signed. Edwin Diaz isn't a lifetime Met like Pete Alonso is, but this was already a tough sell to the Mets fans because they got a little bit worse in this trade. And they traded away the guy who's been with this organization the longest. He was drafted in 2011 out of Cheyenne, Wyoming. They didn't even have a baseball team, so he had to find other routes to play baseball. So you have a guy who was, then he was drafted. He made his major league debut in 2016, so he's been with the team for 10 years. He's been in the majors for 10 years, and he's done a lot. He's had a lot of growth and development, and he was beloved by the fans. But at the same time, he was never a part of any winning culture. And when you have a collapse that the Mets had the last couple, that had last season, you can't expect to roll out this same core and expect different results. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So clearly this core wasn't working. I expect Jeff McNeil to be moved. I hope and pray that Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso stay as members of the Mets. This double play situation with Marcus Semien and Francisco Lindor has me excited. Don't know what this means for Jet Williams. I feel like this opens up so many more trade possibilities, maybe for Tarek Skubal, maybe for Fernando Tatis Jr., maybe even for Paul Skeens if they want to go that route. I don't think that there's a single person in Major League Baseball that is unattainable to the Mets right now because they have the prospects. They have the number one ranked prospect farm system in all of baseball. Use it. I don't want to, go off of lottery tickets and see if these guys are good enough. Go out and get veteran pitchers. I really am against trading guys like Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong because they've shown so much promise, especially Nolan McLean with how that he was pitching in 2025. But those are two guys that I want to build the roster around, the rotation around, I should say. Then you have Christian Scott coming back from major injury, missed the last 2 years. Maybe he's good. Maybe you ship him off. David Peterson, who knows? Who knows how good he's going to be? He completely fell off the face of the earth after being one of the best Mets pitchers in the beginning of the year. Sean Manaea, I love him. He's got a great smile, great personality. But I want veteran dogs in this rotation. And this, locking up second base allows them to trade guys like Jet Williams, Luis Angel Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio. I mean, it was announced today that Marcus Semien will be wearing number 10, which was Ronnie Mauricio's number. So maybe that means that Ronnie Mauricio is no longer going to be a member of the Mets. Maybe they move on from him. He's a switch hitter with pop and speed, and I really like him, and I really love his game, but he just didn't have it. It hasn't clicked for him since he joined the big league squad. He had that insane double for his first career hit where he hit it like over 110 miles an hour. It didn't go out, and he still managed to be fast enough to get a double out of it, which was one of the most insane hits I've ever seen. But I digress. This needs to be the offseason where the Mets go balls to the wall. They have Pete Alonso. Hopefully they bring back Pete Alonso. They have Francisco Lindor. Now they have Marcus Semien. They have Edwin Diaz in the bullpen. Hopefully they bring him back. They have good, young, proven talent in Jonah Tong and Nolan McLean in that rotation. So hopefully they're able to, build around some of the young pieces they have, but also stack this team with veterans. There's also a name that's being floated out there in Kyle Schwarber. And he literally just hit over 50 home runs this past season. And he is a fantastic power hitter. I'm not taking anything away from that. But at this point in time, unless it's like literally a 1-year deal, I don't see how having Kyle Schwarber on this team helps the Mets because it would solve the DH problem. But in a few years, you're going to have Pete Alonso being moved off of first base, and he's going to have to be a DH at some point. And Juan Soto already is not great defensively. He's going to have to be a DH in a few years. And, it's going to be really expensive to sign Kyle Schwarber. And for a DH who literally just only really hits home runs, and other than that is pretty useless, doesn't really excite me. It doesn't really get me going. So we'll see what goes forward with this Mets with the rotation, with their lineup, how this offseason stacks up. This is, as a Mets fan, this is my favorite time of year because we get to have all these crazy fan theories, and you get excited when you get the Jeff Passan notification on your phone that the Mets made a big deal, and then the season starts, and then it's not fun anymore. And then all the joy escapes your body. And then you realize that you're a Mets fan and you've wasted 20 years of your life rooting for a team that won't go anywhere. But the offseason's fun. Hey, how about that? But that does it for the first part of this Kevin Blekicki show. We will be back after these messages. Welcome back to the Kevin Blekicki show. And it is my least favorite time of the week. and that is trying to interpret what the hell these college football playoff rankings mean and what their thought process was. Everyone right now is talking about Notre Dame being ranked over Miami. If you've watched Notre Dame football since the week 2 loss to Texas A&M, they have looked like one of the best teams in the country outside of that Boston College game where they struggled, but they ended up winning that game anyway. So you can't really punish the team for winning the game. However, these two teams met earlier in the season. How early? Week 1. And these two teams have the same record at this point. They are both 9-2. Now, the way that it might end up is that neither of these teams are going to play in a conference championship game. One, because Notre Dame is not in a conference, and Miami just seems like they're on the outside looking in. They have to have a lot of help in order to make it to the ACC championship game. Their best chance of making the playoffs would be just to go and win the ACC. That's still kind of looking like a far reach, but they could make it. And right now, they are in the playoffs. Right now, but they would also probably get kicked out once the ACC winner is announced. So right now, with the top 10 teams, number 1 Ohio State. Makes sense. They've been number 1 since they beat Texas. They haven't lost, so there's no reason to move them down. Then you have number 2 Indiana, undefeated again. Number 3 Texas A&M, undefeated again. The top 3 have not changed since the college football playoff rankings have started. Then number 4 you have Georgia. Number 5 Texas Tech. Number 6 you have Oregon. Oregon moves up a spot over Ole Miss. Ole Miss is now 7. Then Oklahoma is 8. Notre Dame is 9. Alabama is 10. And Miami is number 12. And where this gets really, really, really stupid and messed up is that BYU is the first team out, ranked number 11 in a 12-team playoff. They are the 11th ranked team in a 12-team playoff, and they missed the playoff. What are we doing? What are we doing here? This makes no sense. We do this every year. Every year there's just something that just makes no sense, and you can't understand what these college football playoff committee members are thinking, because it makes no sense. How are you going to have a top 12 team miss a 12-team playoff? That's egregious. That is way worse than Notre Dame being ranked above Miami. Because right now Miami is the number 12 ranked team, but they're the 11th seed and Tulane is the 12th seed, but they're the 24th ranked team in the country, because we have to have a group of 5 team in the playoffs. That's why I've always advocated for a relegation system. You have a power conference tied to a group of 5 conference, and you just do a relegation system where you take a team's record over 3 years, and the team with the best record in the group of 5 over that time span moves up to the team with the worst conference record over the last 3 years in the power conference that they're tied to. And that way you have, you have the better teams in the group of 5 having an opportunity to play in the Power 4. And you could, kind of smush together and combine some of the teams in the conference, so you have a Power 4 and a group of 4, or you can separate the Big Ten and the ACC, and you can spread everything out and then have a Power 5 and group of 5, as God intended in the Bible. But this just makes no sense. No one wants to see Tulane in the college football playoff. Right now, they would be going on the road to play a number 5 Texas Tech team, and Texas Tech would just absolutely destroy them. There's no need for any of this. this is just overly complicated and convoluted for no reason. So, as it stands, the the top 4 seeds, 2 of the seeds would be Big 10 teams in Indiana and Ohio State, and the other 2 teams would be Georgia and Texas A&M from the SEC. So, we were hoping that the top 4 seeds would be the Power 4 conference champions, and then you would have a group of 5 champion make it into the playoff as well. But it turns out that the top 4 seeds are just going to be split by 2 conferences, and that means that the 11th seed is going to be the ACC champion, and the 12th seed is going to be Tulane. So if they don't make the if they don't make the ACC championship, Miami's going to have a tough time getting in, especially with the way that Notre Dame has played. I know that the 2 teams played each other in week 1, but since then, Notre Dame has looked like a significantly better team. So there's going to be a lot of impact of rivalry week on the college football playoff. So let's go through this schedule and see what possibly could happen in terms of shakeup. Friday, we have Ole Miss and Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. That's going to be a huge game because the day after that is when Lane Kiffin makes his decision on whether or not he's going to stay as head coach of Ole Miss, and if he's going to go to either LSU or Florida, which are the 2 favorite teams to pick him up. So that has, playoff implications as well. Perhaps maybe his players are distracted, going on the road, for a team who's fighting for bowl eligibility in a rivalry game. You never know. Those damn annoying cowbells. Who knows what's going to happen in that rivalry game? Georgia and Georgia Tech could be a big one. Because, Georgia is trying to fight for an SEC championship spot, as well as Georgia Tech. So those 2 teams are fighting for a spot in the playoffs. So that should be great. I wish it was at Bobby Dodd Stadium and not at Mercedes-Benz, but we can't ever have anything nice. Indiana and Purdue, I don't expect to really have much of a impact on the playoff because Indiana's 11-0 and Purdue is 2-9. So that's going to be pretty easy. Texas A&M and Texas is going to be a good one because right now I think Texas A&M is going to be safe. I don't think that they have to worry about missing the playoffs. They're pretty much locked in there. But Texas is 3 losses, has 3 losses. If they're able to knock off Texas A&M and maybe some chaos happens, they might sneak in. But they also have 3 losses, so that would not be a good look on the college football playoff. You have Ohio State and Michigan, the game. Number 1 Ohio State against number 15 Michigan. Michigan can still sneak into the Big Ten championship game. That's going to be a good one. They can win if they beat Ohio State and Washington beats Oregon, or Purdue beats Indiana. Purdue's not going to beat Indiana. Washington could upset the Ducks. You never know. It's a rivalry game, as I mentioned. Oregon's going on the road. You never know what's truly going to happen. Miami and Pitt, that's going to have playoff implications. It is very weird how this is set up because Miami is the number 12 team in the country. Pitt is the number 22 team in the country, but Pitt, if they win, makes it into the ACC championship game. It's crazy how you can be that far ahead in the standings and not make the playoff because some team behind you had a better record in conference. I swear to God, this whole playoff format has to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. I swear. Like I mentioned, Oregon goes on the road to Washington. Could be a potential upset. I don't think it will be, but it could. Vandy and Tennessee is going to be a great matchup. Vanderbilt is looking for a spot in the playoff as well. Tennessee is kind of just going to play spoiler. They're ranked number 19 in the country. They really don't have a chance to make the playoff. Virginia Tech and Virginia. Virginia's looking really good right now. They're looking for a spot in the ACC championship game as well as the playoff. Virginia Tech has really nothing going for them this year until James Franklin takes over. Alabama and Auburn is going to be another great matchup. The Iron Bowl always delivers. Alabama seems to struggle when they go to Jordan Hare. Auburn is going to be fighting for a bowl position, so a lot to play for both teams. Now let's go through the different clinching scenarios in the different conferences. You have SMU making the ACC championship game if they beat Cal and Pitt loses and Duke loses and Virginia wins and USC wins. So if SMU and Virginia win, they're into the ACC championship game. Now we talk about Miami trying to make it in. They need to beat Pitt, and Virginia needs to lose to Virginia Tech, and Duke needs to lose, and SMU needs to win. Or Pitt and SMU lose, and Duke loses, and Virginia loses, and NC State wins, or beat Pitt and SMU loses, and Duke loses, and Virginia loses, and UNC wins, and Syracuse wins, or they beat Pitt and SMU loses, and Duke loses, and Virginia wins, and NC State wins, and Syracuse wins. So basically, they need a lot of help. They need a lot of help. Pittsburgh makes the ACC title game if they win, and Virginia or SMU loses. So it's unlikely that Pittsburgh makes the ACC championship game. Georgia Tech needs to win. They make it if Georgia Tech makes it if Pitt wins and Virginia loses and SMU loses. Miami wins and NC State wins and SMU loses and Duke loses and Virginia loses. So Georgia Tech does not control their own destiny because they play Georgia. They're in the SEC and Georgia Tech's in the ACC. So they can't control the conference championship result because they don't play a conference game this week. So it's out of their hands. So they have to rely on other teams to lose. Now, the Big Ten, what should happen is Ohio State and Indiana win, and they just get in. But they're going on the road to Michigan, the Buckeyes are. They haven't won in like 4 years. So that could be a tough game for them. Ohio State can also get in if Purdue beats Indiana, which isn't going to happen, and Washington beats Oregon, which could happen, but is unlikely. Indiana gets in if they win or Ohio State beats Michigan. So Indiana, I would say, has the best odds to make it. Oregon reaches the title game if they beat Washington and Michigan beats Ohio State. So that could also happen. So if Ohio State loses, they could be out of the Big Ten championship game completely. But this game this weekend has a lot of playoff implications, a lot of conference championship implications. It's going to be great. But I want to wrap up this show talking about Lane Kiffin real quick because this is so crazy. He is going to make his decision on whether or not he's going to be the Ole Miss head coach on Saturday after the Egg Bowl between them and Mississippi State. I'm kind of leaning that he's going to leave. I don't know why he would leave because he's literally has a chance to not just, make the college football playoff, but also win an SEC championship there. They're having a great season. They've been one of the best teams in college football, and he's going to throw it away to go to either LSU or Florida, where you don't really know what's going to happen. You think you're going to have success there, but you never know. I think the whole thing is stupid, and also if he says he's going to move on, is he just going to abandon his team in the middle of a college football playoff run? right? Is he going to quit right before they make the playoffs? Or is he going to stick around in the playoffs knowing his team, knowing that he's not going to be there next year? Are they even going to play for him knowing that he's leaving? Are they going to try and transfer out? This whole thing makes no sense. I think he should stay at Ole Miss. I think he takes the LSU job because it's a better job. But that does it for this edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me anywhere at Kevin Blekicki on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. See you again next week. Happy Thanksgiving.